So here we are again. Can somebody be our note taker? Because I'm not very good at it, even when I feel like doing it. Oh, Laney? Yeah. Well, whoever volunteers to be the note taker, the first job will be to make the Gavi document.
I can try to take notes.
Okay.
Let me move up so I can hear what everybody's saying.
And you probably want to hook it to the projector as well?
Yes. Right, so since there's some people here who I know haven't been in the previous 3 or 4 times we've discussed this, I'll just summarize. Right now, Backports is in the default sources list but disabled. And the reason for that is because the way Backports works right now is if you have Backports enabled, it's just like any other repository and you get everything that got backported. Whereas the more typical, and so it's clearly not suitable to have that enabled by default. Because that's Backports does carry some degree of higher level risk than the release that should be stable. But the thing is, when people want backports, they usually want something specific. And you can accomplish getting something specific, but it involves pinning and doing things that are more magical than our primary user base could really be expected to accomplish. So there's a few layers of problem in the package, in the guts of the package manager. We have a problem, and that is that.
Not that one.
What's that?
It's full screen of the wrong VM. There we go.
So, and just by comparison, the difference between Ubuntu backports and Debian backports is the Debian backports is by default pinned to 1, I believe. And so you can enable Debian backports, and not everything, you don't get anything other than what you explicitly request from backports. The problem with that is the way the app resolver works right now is if that package from backports needs a newer version of a package that exists both in the release and in backports, it doesn't know to try and pull the newer package from backports, and the install will fail, and the error messages are even obscure for apps.
So when the dependency can only be satisfied from backports, then?
What's that?
When the dependency is satisfied from backports only. Not
Yes, exactly, right.
Okay, so the issue in apt is actually relatively deep, and the way I initially wanted to solve this was, to make the resolver capable of cleverly work out which version it needs to take and which not. But it turns out that talking to David here and just playing ping pong with ideas, there is probably a way to solve it in a simpler way that involves less work. So hopefully this time we can make it happen.
Excellent. Right. So that's one piece of the problem, because one of the thoughts early on was, well, let's just be like Debian backports. But once again, that would drive users into a condition that we really can't expect our user base to deal with. And so even though if you enable backports, get them all is not the experience we want in terms of not getting users in a situation where they can't do what they're trying to do, it's the best there is. So where I would like to get it is so that we can ship backports enabled by default, but that won't actually affect what packages users have installed without them making some effort to go get something from backports. And so that's the goal. And then so there's 2 pieces of change that we need. One is the resolver issue, and the other is to make the backports archive not automatic. And that's a flag. So that would be a small language change, I believe.
And you probably want to add also the new but upgrades flag. So the pin is 100 and you get upgrades for backport
Right,
package.
right. Well, that's, I think, why we said not automatic instead of pin at low, if I recall.
The reason was that it kind of makes, to me at least, it seems cleaner to have it on this, like say it on the server side, instead of putting it into every client,
Right.
and then we have to have a way for the user to edit it if he wants to edit
Hey, right.
So, yeah.
Right, but right, that's actually an important point of, in terms of the desired experience is once somebody has selected a package from Backports, if a newer version of that package lands in Backports, we want them to get that automatically.
Right.
Once they've moved where they want it from, we want to follow that
And
path.
Does that happen with these two changes, or is that a separate issue?
Well,
Sorry, that happens with the app resolver changes?
So first we need to fix the resolver, then we need to add this not automatic flag,
Sure.
but we also need to add an additional flag that is called but upgrades equals true. So it's not automatic but upgrades basically.
yeah,
It's just it's the same amount of work. It's just two flags. Then we get the experience that Scott was describing.
right.
Once you have selected it, it's basically tracked.
Yeah, it's like there's a fork in the road and you've taken it and you stay on that
Right.
path.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
And then one thing related to that is one thing we do track in the Backports project when we're approving Backports is that there's an upgrade path. So if right now, if you want to backport from Natty to Hardy, you must also backport to Lucid and Maverick.
Oh, nice.
Because we want the users to be able to have an upgrade path. This is semantically, it's equivalent to what's now Backport Sloppy and Debian. So that's, and there's nothing that enforces that mechanically. It's part of what we review when we look at Backport requests.
Right.
And so we'll either approve them as a set or start at the newest one and work back to the target.
Although that is something that when I start working on tools, that is logic that I'm planning to encode in the tools.
Okay, and we could probably have a separate discussion and, about how, about that.
Yeah.
So then that's at the pipes and tubes level, what we need to do, and then the question is, how does that get exposed to the user? Is a separate level of discussion. In the past, when we talked about this before, we've talked about Update Manager, and that would deal with this. But then, I think also this should be reflected to some degree in Software Center.
Right.
And the Package Kit developer is not here this time, but he's interested in this as well, so we could, on the Kubuntu side, have a similar experience, although it's a separate implementation.
Right.
And so, that's, and I think it'd be nice in Software Center, because then this could show up in the what's new, and there'd actually be stuff that would show up in what's new.
Right. So one thing I would like to add as an action item is that if we enable it by default, we should also have the automatic upgrade tester actually test an upgrade with all of backports installed.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's
Right. And I actually do that test with at least default apps. I don't do the whole archive.
right. Yeah. I mean, we have the machinery. It's just adding another profile.
Right.
And, watching it.
Right. And then so, when you think about then at the different initiatives within the Ubuntu project, and to help keep the user experience fresh, you have this is the path to freshness for things that are actually in the archive already, is the goal. Whereas, the ARB stuff is a different path to that. Separately, in the previous session, we've discussed having, basically right now we have a problem where once we hit feature freeze, we don't have anywhere to backport from until the next release opens. And we have a plan to solve that problem that we can do in this cycle as well, I think. So if we can get this done, we can have something that we can say to upstream particularly, no, you don't need to maintain your own PPA to get your new releases to the actual user base. Here's for real Debian packages, here's a relatively rapid path to the releases that need to be supported. It's not 6 to 8 months, and it's not, oh gee, we just hit feature freeze, sorry. I need to have a new release start before I can actually go to older releases, which makes no sense outside the project. So,
What's the plan if someone's tracking a backported package at Maverick, say,
Mhm.
and then they upgrade to Natty? Do they stay on the backports
Oh, that's-
for that
Depends on what the-
package, or do they switch over to the version that's in Natty, which
Right.
should be?
okay, so one aspect of the versioning is the version in the next release in the main archive will always have a higher version than what's been backported. If it's from that, so for the Maverick Natty case, you will always end up back in the regular archive. Now, if it's been backported to Hardy and it was from Natty and you upgrade to Lucid, you'll still be in backports. But so yeah, and because of the way we version them, that naturally happens.
So you always get the highest one, right?
Right.
So if it's been backported after feature freeze into Natty, you will get the Natty backports.
Right, and just to diverge a second, the mechanism that we're going to use to keep backports fresh after feature freeze, we're actually going to open backports early.
To do what?
In the same way that we open proposed slightly before the actual release.
Yes.
Oh,
Now there's some details about how we're going to do that so that it doesn't interfere with testing, but I've talked with Colin some, I think it's all manageable.
right.
And then we'll just forward port that stuff when the new release is created, much as we do with the stuff from proposed. But that's, like I said, we had a separate section on that, but it's a piece of the puzzle. But both of these are a piece of the puzzle to have a good path to keep the users who care to be, fresh for certain packages. The one thing in the thinking you've done about Update Manager, I'm not sure how we deal with this in the server user experience.
Well, I guess, a server user, he can just use apt-get install package /
Right.
backports.
Right.
And
It's not discoverable in the package manager, but
right,
that's not really a bug in that case.
we don't actually have a update front end on the server. We have
Right.
update manager text, which works fine, but
Yeah.
it's not even on the default install. So
Okay.
there is really no default
Right.
experience.
Right, I've never used
Yeah.
it, so I just use apt-get.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of not relevant, I think. Basically, the
Yeah.
server target audience is sophisticated enough to deal with it on their own.
We could provide it. It would be kind of nice to have a generic utility, like something like app show versions, where it would tell you like there are 25 packages in backports, there are 500 packages in updates,
Yeah,
this kind of stuff.
yeah.
Useful in other situations
It
as
would,
well. Like
it would almost seem desirable that when you do an apt-get install, the specific package that you put on the command line, that apt would then check to see if there was a backport available and ask you if you want it. I said almost.
Yeah.
I said almost.
Yeah, a bit beyond its. But the thing is, if we had a higher level of abstraction we were using,
Sure.
that's something that would be. But the other thing is, I was thinking it's like the trivial implementation is RMATIS in the current version.
yeah, we could also make apt cache policy actually. Having an additional command like apt show versions or something that is actually more useful than policy.
Right.
That is a good idea as well.
Yeah.
Things like that might be easier to expose in the software center as
Yeah.
well.
It's a fine line we need to walk. Like if there is an existing version and the user sees there's version 2 and there's version 3, and he would always pick version 3 because version 3 is
And not really
has to be.
understanding that there
Exactly.
could be some experimental nature
Right,
to
exactly.
that.
So yeah, when it comes to new applications, I think it's great, and I
Right.
also think it works. It should work right out of the box. So stuff will just show up and what's new. When it comes to having two different versions for the same application, I'm not so sure how to expose it yet
Right.
in such a way that it's not scary, but on the other hand, not too inviting.
Right, and I know MPT is interested in this spec and subscribe to it, and so
Yeah,
we should write a work item for him to figure out how to do that.
right.
Sometimes it's handy to have designers. Particularly when they don't show up at the meeting.
Right.
Task.
Adding work items.
So, I don't think we necessarily need the full time, because this is fairly well described what it is we need to accomplish, but I want to get it on the list of things we're going to do. I know you're the newest to this. Does this all make sense? Do you have questions?
Yep, this makes sense. This is exactly what we need to do.
Okay.
What happens with not automatic yes, and if I actually want more backports and pin it up, does that work still?
Does that pin work at all?
Sure.
It works exactly as intended.
Yeah.
The problem is not everybody understands what that is.
So can we task one of you two with the apt implementation for supporting for the resolver issue? Like, I mean, just to actually have it on the page.
Just put app developers.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it looks promising. I mean, like I said, like my initial reaction to it was like, yeah, we need to fix it in a general way, which is actually not what we really need. I mean, we just need to fix the specific case, like where you set a specific version, and then we just need to walk the dependency chain, making
Right.
sure that we force the version of the Backports repository or any downpinned repository
Right.
and for this specific chain, not a general like. Not
Yeah,
a
right,
general resolver
Right,
change.
and then as I understand it, I think these same changes will be immediately useful in Debian backports as well.
Exactly.
It
Same
also
problem.
works for experimental.
Right, absolutely, and volatile as well.
It's a very useful addition to have. It means we need to modify the front ends. So Software Center or Update Manager will not get it for free. They need to have an additional function call, but that's fine because this is exactly what we want. We don't want to break ABI in a subtle way.
We would be dramatic and obvious about it.
Yeah, exactly. It will just work as before if there is no action taken and if the software also changes it, it will just work,
Mhm.
hopefully.
And if it doesn't, that's a bug, and we know how to deal with
Right,
it.
exactly, then it's just a bug. So yeah.
Mark them invalid and move on, right?
Market's wish list and move on.
Yeah, right.
Same thing. Oh, whoops.
Right. So anybody who's not in the room, questions, comments?
Did we note the shell script to show backports? It can be a separate script.
Yeah, we should have a action.
Yeah, I mean, for a particular package, our Madison pipe grep release name will give you that.
Yeah. I mean, in general, while we edit anyway, we can rethink some of the tools we have. I mean, like I said, something like actual versions.
Right.
That just shows you what stuff is available. Like a bit like Ubuntu support status, which will tell you.
Right, okay.
95% of your packages are supported for 18 months, 5% are not supported, and on an LTS it prints out even more stuff. A little bit like this, I guess. Like there's.
Could we call those community supported and not supported?
Sorry, yeah, community supported. Yeah, you're right. And the other one would be having a friendlier way of apt cache policy to know what versions are available for a package. Like apt
Do you
version.
want that only for installed packages or for all packages? Which that are you talking about?
Is helper script show backward versions?
Yeah.
So I suppose I don't need to use IRC for this end of the discussion. So are you saying that you want something that so if we turn on not automatic, it's yes, you want a tool that says, no, really, I actually want to know what all the backports are.
Well, I mean, there's two use cases, right? You want to know what backports have I installed now? And then you also want to know what backports could I install? You know, like, you don't necessarily know, you're not going to go through every single package you ever thought of using and say, is there a backport for that? How about for that one? How about for that one?
And
It's a lot easier to get a list of,
Sure.
50 or whatever.
exactly.
So that could be gravity control, somewhere. Not, I mean, wrapper around, obviously, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you could implement it using that same logic.
Yeah, like you said on IRC.
So I guess what we really want is a helper script.
Yeah.
I'll just say for exploring backported options.
Not just backports, but yeah, like repositories in general. Like it should be useful for updates as well. So it should tell you, you know, you have 25 packages installed from updates, and there are 75 packages that are not installed from updates.
Probably also think about things like PPAs as well, could conceivably be grouped under this umbrella.
Exactly.
If you have a set of PPAs that you've
Yeah.
entered into your standards.
We need to make it nice. So we need to think about a little bit about it, how to present enough information that it's useful, but you know, not overload it with huge amount of package lists.
Yeah.
But
I feel like an awesome wish list item that would come out of this would be a flag in Launchpad to set a PPA as being not automatic.
that's interesting.
Because once I have this capability, like if I have a PPA where I'm throwing everything, I no longer need to have separate PPAs for each
Right.
collection of. But that we can look at that down the
That's
line.
outside the scope of
I
this
agree.
discussion,
I
but
agree.
it's an interesting idea,
I agree.
yes.
Maybe natty plus one.
No, that's actually just a Soyuz
It's a
issue.
launchpad thing.
It's just a Soyuz issue, right?
Right, it's actually not an Ubuntu development issue, it's a Launchpad development issue, so.
It's still going to end up with a blueprint at some point, and someone will work on it as
Yeah.
an item, but
Right.
not this cycle.
Yeah, I agree. We should wait until the app support is landed.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, given that it's really only just adding 2 lines of text, anybody who's interested
Should
in,
be an easy hack.
yeah, exactly. Anybody who Launchpad is free software, so
Mm.
anyone could just start hacking on it, get good reviews on his branches, and
Mhm.
land it.
That almost seems to be something that should rather land somewhere in Software Center than Launchpad.
No, it's, this is something for the PPA owner, but we can talk about that some other time. Or I guess
I guess
if
we're
we're done.
I'm only mentioning just because.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine to mention, I just,
It's a good logical extension.
right. I just want to make it clear that in this spec, we're focused on what lands in Ubuntu. Yeah. Right.
So now, at this point, it's just a JFDI. I learned it from Journal, right?
Just what was it?
JFDI.
Please do it.
Just please do it.
Oh, right.
That's a new acronym for you?
Kind of.
Okay, all right.
I don't think it's a new acronym for me, but it's certainly a new expansion.
Well, his was, yes.
Yeah, I'd never heard that one before, but it sounds nice.
Right.
People should look over the notes and make sure I didn't miss anything important. But I will post them back to the whiteboard and the proceedings.
Scott, are you doing the summary of this one in the overall summary wiki? Just 3 bullet points.
Yeah, I should do that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, just the historical, this, basically this spec was first admitted in John D. So,
Yeah, I vaguely remember we talked about it in San Francisco.
yeah, well, I wasn't in San Francisco, but it was Michael Kester.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that put it in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
1.5 years ago, or how long is it?
Let's see, Johnny was,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Sean, she was the.
it's okay. There's stuff I proposed in Prague that was like, why would we ever want to do that? Became essential about 1 or 2 cycles ago, so.
What was it?
Oh, it just, like some of the stuff that in the server community, they're doing the puppet and automatic recipes, and
Right.
I proposed a very similar idea back for Intrepid, and it was like, now we ain't doing
That's fine. It happens.
that. Yeah. So, anyway. All right, cool.